Okay, we're going to build this custom email subscription form that's going to be powered by custom Gutenberg block editors. So let's talk about how to do this. All right, so the very first step is to go ahead and create a hook that hooks into the init callback function. And here we're defining the URL to the JavaScript file and the CSS file that's going to be loaded when the actual Gutenberg block is created. And here we're creating their handles and then creating dependencies of files that need to be loaded prior to actually running the block. And now it's time to register the custom block editor that we're creating by providing a namespace for it and the actual name for it. And then a bunch of arguments to specify the API version that we're using, the script, and the style for this custom block editor. So this takes care of loading the files that we need. Now it's time to actually create the file. So we'll create blocks.js. We'll talk more about H later. Register your custom block by having the exact same name you provided in PHP. Here by the namespace, followed by the name. And now we're going to create a large object that's going to be responsible for defining the overall structure of this block by providing a title, a description, an icon, which can be an SVG, a URL image, or you can visit here for more information, and then provide a categories type, which is going to be a type of widgets, but here's some bunch of other ones. I'll provide some keywords as well as for searchability of this component within the larger ecosystem of blocks that you have. So attributes is like the data model for your entire block. It represents what type of data types you'll access for your block. You'll write to it and get information from it. So here I'm defining a title for my email subscription, a layout, a placeholder, and some extra CSS classes, route endpoint for submission of the form. Okay, so here's where H comes in. It takes three parameters: the tag name, and then a object, and then lastly the contents for the tag. And I should mention that the custom block editor will have two functions, an edit function and a save function, each of which is going to return a HTML markup of how to actually render the custom block. And here we're going to do an example. I'll create an H1 tag that has these attributes and it's going to wrap a span element. So I'll create a span where the text color is going to be pink. And now we're going to see a demonstration of what we have so far. And so dropping it into our document, we see our custom block in all its glories. And so if we're able to inspect the document, we see that we have an H1 with all those attributes. And now we see our span with the color pink. All right, so going back to blocks.js, what I'm going to do is pull out some variables, some components that I'm going to need in order to build out my custom block editor. So what I'm going to do is pull out some of these. I will not necessarily use all of them for this particular tutorial, but I just wanted to let you know that it's available. And then from the editor, I'm going to pull out these as well. Back in our edit and save function, I want to make sure that the save function returns null because I'll be using server-side rendering. All right, so within our Gutenberg block, we're going to have a div that's going to wrap multiple rows, and each row is going to have a label and a corresponding form field that's going to be managing the data for our custom block. And of course, this is where those variables I pulled out earlier will come in handy. As you recall, up here, I defined the text control. I pulled it out and I'm using it here now. And so its attributes is going to be a placeholder. I'm going to initialize it with a value from props attributes title. And then whenever it changes, I'm going to set props.set attribute and set the title with an object with a key title and value. So for this next row, what I want to do is have two text controls right next to each other. Accomplish that by using flex. And so each is going to be 50%. And whenever one changes, I'll update the placeholder text and as well as the button text for the subscription for the form. Then I'm going to do that one more time so that I accomplish the same thing. I'll have two text controls next to each other. However, this time I'm actually going to switch things up by having a select control just to demonstrate how to do that. So this is an actual element from HTML5, and so therefore I will set its value here and it's some styling. And so whenever it changes, I'm going to give it an element is going to be returned back rather than the actual value. And so what I'll do is set attributes by saying the layout is going to be event.target.value, which is different from up here where I just pass in the value. Just important to note. All right, so this is a HTML5 element, so I'll make sure to set options appropriately with inline and columns. Moving on, the very last row is going to be URL submission for when the user submits the form, their data gets submitted to this location here. And with that, we are ready to go. So within Gutenberg, my custom block is going to look like this. And now we just need to take care of the rendering on the front end. To take care of that, we're going to go back to PHP, create a render callback within our block registration, and pass it the name of the function to call to actually render the block. This function is going to take one parameter called attributes, and this attribute holds the data from the block that we defined in JavaScript, and it's going to spit out this wonderful HTML string that parses in the data that was passed in. The last thing to do is create our block.css file that's going to dress up the front end so our form looks fantastic. And don't worry, I know this video went super fast, but the source code is available on soliduscode.com, the link below. Please, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Until next time.